Amber Heard. What is she? Part 1. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. As you are aware, the defamation trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard has begun. And in order to determine what has driven their behaviours to get them to the place that they are at, we need to understand what they actually are. We start with Amber Heard. It is important to emphasise at the outset that the analysis of her behaviours has been taken from a wide range of material. News reports, videos, interviews, admissions she's provided herself, comment from other people. Certain material hasn't found its way into the final analysis, but supports and corroborates behaviours that are mentioned. The additional material isn't included, otherwise these parts would run on into 40 or 50 parts. And, as was once remarked, brevity is the soul of wit. Nevertheless, we don't do this on a bullet point basis, as there is a lot of material that must be conveyed in order to create a fair and balanced picture of the behaviours. It's also important to understand that in making the determination of what this person is, this is not a pronouncement as to whether they are a good or bad person. You are the ones that can make such a judgment if you wish. It is simply a categorization. In the same way that a lion would be described as a predator, you can determine whether you think the lion is a good animal or a bad animal, or maybe neither. They're just being an animal. And therefore, the descriptions of the behaviours and the ultimate classification of both Heard and Depp is not done from a position of taking sides or bias. And I make this point simply to avoid people wasting their time, and particularly my time, with stupid observations in the comments section, which demonstrate that they haven't actually listened to what I've explained. I am neither Team Johnny or Team Amber. I'm here to objectively analyse the behaviours, to provide a categorisation as to what that means, to aid your understanding, and it's important that you take that on board. With that stated, now let's get into the examination of Amber Heard. Amber Heard was born in Austin, Texas, to Patricia Page, nee Parsons, an internet researcher who lived from 1956 to 2020, clearly having passed away recently. And her death is something that has impacted upon Amber Heard and is relevant also to the assessment of her characteristics and behaviours. And she was born also to David Clinton Heard, who was born in 1950, who owned a small construction company. Amber Heard has a younger sister called Whitney. They were both raised in Texas, about 40 miles outside of the state capital, Austin, and it was described as a conservative area. Heard described it as a very monotone presentation of society, and she still recalls the first time she saw a Muslim woman in a hijab. "I was electrified," she admitted. Their mother, Patricia, worked in telecommunications for the state, and their father, David, ran a small construction firm. A keen hunter and horse broker, he liked to treat middle daughter Amber as the son he never had. That suggests potential favouritism, suggests that she might have been viewed as the golden child. It also suggests that a role perhaps was imposed upon her that she didn't necessarily want, that she was made to conform to being the son that he never had, which could hint at a lack of controlled environment. They were fishing, camping and hunting companions. Apparently, hunting is their bonding activity to this day. And Heard, although a self-described girly girl, was raised to be tenacious. Her father taught her to ride horses aggressively and drive pickup trucks, and scared off potential suitors with his penchant for shotguns. "I was always into older men as a teenager," Heard once said, before going on to marry Depp, 22 years her senior. I never dated in my school. That was a ridiculous idea to me. Now, it also might mean that her father's influence was one of a constructive and supportive environment, that although he treated her like the son that he never had, she enjoyed that role, that she flourished under that role, and it was one within which she was supported. Of course, the fact that he would scare off potential suitors with his shotgun demonstrates a need to assert control. Now, of course, all fathers are going to be protective of their daughters, although they may not go so far as to wave a shotgun around. And again, that interpretation might just be fatherly protectiveness, or it might hint at a greater need for control over his daughter. It's interesting to note, of course, that Heard remarks that she was always into older men as a teenager. Is this the fact that she sought maturity because she was exposed to behaviours that didn't support that maturity? Or was it quite simply an aspect of her character that older men appealed to her, and not in a way that was necessarily any characteristic flaw? When she was age 16, Amber Heard's best friend died in a car crash, and it had a profound effect. She was raised a Roman Catholic, influence of church in her life, but she declared herself to be an atheist. Is this again a rebelling against the assertion of control, showing a particular side to her character? And she began reading books by Ray Bradbury and George Orwell. At that time, she started sending headshots to modelling agencies. She'd taken part in beauty pageants as a child. This evidences that it can be seen that Heard is physically attractive, and was certainly the case when she was a child. She was involved in beauty pageants, which appears that she was in agreement to doing. At 17, she dropped out of high school. That potentially suggests a lack of accountability for not remaining in school. And she moved to New York, which thrilled her from the moment she began visiting it to meet agents. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven, she says of the Big Apple. It would appear, therefore, that her Texas upbringing was at odds with who she felt that she actually was, and she felt much more at home in the metropolitan environments of New York and, of course, in due course, Los Angeles. Heard insisted she had no interest in modelling. After completing a home study diploma in New York, she moved to Los Angeles to pursue acting, and despite her lack of contacts and her parents' skepticism, began to be cast in film and TV roles. That demonstrates perhaps a degree of inherent ability and also ambition on her part. Within 2 years, she was in American football drama Friday Night Lights and played the younger version of Charlize Theron's character in North Country, a film about sexual harassment, discrimination and social justice. Her big break came with 2 box office hits in 2008, martial arts drama Never Back Down and stoner comedy Pineapple Express, playing Seth Rogen's high school girlfriend. That year, she won a Breakthrough Award at the Hollywood Film Festival. Again, that supports that there may be there's evidence of talent, and we will be returning to her career in due course as it provides us with more instructive observations about who she is. Amber Heard was also involved in early activism, and it stemmed from an early age. Her father's company employed mostly Hispanic migrants, which instilled in her a sense of injustice of the plight of those on the Mexican side of the border. This suggests perhaps the application of emotional empathy, the plight of those individuals that resonated with her, and defending her empathic trait of justice. Or it might be that quite simply it's an exhibition of cognitive empathy that's done to maintain a facade and cause her to look better. At school, Heard appealed against the decision to deny a same-sex couple entry to prom and fought against the uniform policy so she could wear a shorter skirt and remove her jacket. It seemed inherently unfair to be told I had to dress a certain way, she later explained. Why is it my burden what a boy might be distracted by? Does this show a haughtiness and an arrogance, a sense of entitlement to behave in that way, a lack of accountability for sticking by the rules? Or does this demonstrate an individual that has a strong moral compass, that thinks it isn't right that these things should be done, and that the denial of a same-sex couple being entered to prom is morally repugnant, and therefore her sense of justice, honesty, and decency caused her to stand up on their behalf. Heard credits her teenage experience working at a soup kitchen for intensifying her altruistic drive, and has undertaken duties for the United Nations, American Civil Liberties Union, Syrian American Medical Society, Amnesty International, and Planned Parenthood. That suggests that she exhibits emotional empathy, being involved in charitable and philanthropic drives. Of course, it might also be cognitive empathy that's at display, and that is a manifestation of a facade which is utilised for the purposes of asserting control and enabling her to draw fuel from people. She and her girlfriend, Bianca Butti, were spotted at the Women's Day March in Los Angeles, and Heard has spoken out about the gender pay gap, victim blaming, trans rights, and abortion. I would rather go down for being who I am than to be popular for something I am not, wouldn't you? She told young voters at a conference in New York. Again, is this a manifestation of emotional empathy and the exercise of empathic traits, or are we simply seeing somebody who exhibits cognitive empathy and manages a facade? We shall find out in due course. Let us turn to the question of her mother. As has been reported, in May 2016, Amber Heard filed for divorce from Johnny Depp, and she obtained a restraining order against him. She, of course, claimed that Depp had been verbally and physically abusive during their entire relationship, and we shall be addressing that in later sections of this analysis. In texts, in December 2019, Amber Heard's mother tried to comfort Depp by telling him that Amber didn't want to obtain the order, but her lawyers insisted. Depp told Paige Heard that he wasn't the wife-beater that Amber alleged he was. Paige insisted that Amber's lawyers made her file for the restraining order, and she ended the message by declaring her love for Johnny. She was told it was her only option to not being kicked out. I'm not making excuses. But that is what she believed. She did not want to do it. She felt she was betraying her only love, but the lawyers said so. Please don't pass this on if you ever talk to her again. I love you, son. It would appear that such conduct could tell us two things. First of all, that it suggests empathic behaviours by Amber Heard's mother, that she cared about both of them and wanted to try and mediate the problems between them by blaming the ball-washing bastards that are the lawyers. It suggests that her mother exhibited an empathic trait of honesty and decency, that she wanted to heal and to fix the problems that existed. And therefore, that suggests that there may well have been an empathic, or at least emotional empathy from a normal mother, meted out towards Amber Heard. Also, the fact that the mother was occasioned to reach out to Johnny Depp in the way that she did might suggest that he isn't the demon as been portrayed. But this isn't about Depp at this juncture, and we'll be dealing with that later. But the point is, it does demonstrate the behaviours of Patricia Heard certainly seem to be those of an empathic individual, either a normal exhibiting emotional empathy or an empath exhibiting emotional empathy, and that's important because of the influence that she would have over her daughter. Patricia Heard passed away in 2020, and this led to a tribute by Amber Heard, where she stated, "I am heartbroken and devastated beyond belief at the loss of my mum, Paige Heard. She left us too early, clasping onto the memory of her beautiful, gentle soul. She will be missed from the very depths of our hearts forever. Her unflinching, open heart made her the most beautiful woman I had ever known," Heard wrote. "It's hard to imagine and even more difficult to say, but I feel truly lucky to have been her daughter and been given the gift of having the light she shone on everyone fall on me for nearly 34 years. A glowing tribute indeed. First of all, that does tend to again support the fact that Patricia Heard was a kind, honest, empathic individual, and therefore it's pertinent to note that because of her influence that she would have upon her daughter, something I'll return to presently. Heard's observations about her mother again suggests that there might be the exhibition of emotional empathy, the way that she is heartbroken and devastated. Of course, at the same time, these messages were placed on social media rather than grieving privately, and one then might question, is she utilising her grief and triangulating people with it for the purpose of the assertion of control, drawing of fuel, and facade management? Quite possibly. It might be the exhibition of emotional empathy in that she was genuinely heartbroken by the loss of her mother, or instead she capitalises on it, using it in an opportune manner. Again, we shall make that determination in due course. Accordingly, the start of Amber Heard's life demonstrates that her upbringing was one of tough Texan, but didn't really fit with who she sees herself as, and she went off for the bright lights big city. There was certainly an empathic influence in her life from her mother, and that she had an early involvement in activism and altruistic behaviours, which does support the possible presence of emotional empathy, or that it might be done for facade management. This is a demonstration of a lack of accountability by not staying in school, but her determination to make it to a successful career as an actress also demonstrates an accountability to a career, a determination possibly driven by narcissistic traits of pride and vanity and defiance. Remember, all individuals who are not narcissists are a bundle of both empathic and narcissistic traits. So far, there is evidence which could go in either direction. Let us now move on, in part 2, to understanding more about her father and what that tells us about Amber Heard.